Hey everybody, and welcome to the CineFix Top 100, the train that dumped us in another gang's turf, and watching 100 of the greatest movies ever made is now the only way we'll ever make it back to Coney Island. I'm Clint Gage, and joining me as always, CineFix's acting war chief, Alex Stedman. Alex, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Clint?
I am hanging in. If we can just get back to that Ferris wheel, we'll be all right. And of course, also joining us, the man who, if you ask if he can dig it, his answer will always be yes. Michael Calabro. Cal, what's up, dude?
Hey, Clint, how's it going, dude?
It's going. The same answer as the one that I gave Alex there. The good news, bad news here is we're actually sneaking up on the end of our Community season, so I'm told. We've only got a handful of episodes left dealing with Community before we take a little break and come back for a season 3 in which Dan's algorithm no doubt has some fresh hell for us to endure. But how have we enjoyed the Community season of the Top 100 so far?
I've enjoyed. I personally am a sucker for a good friendship in a movie, so it's going to be tough to top a Community theme, I have to say. I'm curious what the next one will be.
I am too, but there's been some ups and downs here.
There have been some we haven't talked about this week's movie yet, but it's been a dude-heavy season, I will say, I think we can all say that.
We appreciate you coming on this dude-heavy podcast.
Braving the lion's den.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Braving the dude-heavy podcast. I mean, Dan's algorithm is technically a dude too, right? Isn't that how algorithms identified?
I would,
whatever.
Yeah. No, Dan's algorithm,
And
yes.
typically, like all of the AI right now is horribly biased to dudes because it was invented by Dan.
It's been a fun season, though. I'm trying to,
Oh, dude, I mean, we did Seven Samurai.
Oh,
we did,
classic.
Right? We did Robin Hood, which I have personally taken a decent amount of shit for, and I will continue.
Deservedly so.
I will
Deservedly
continue
so.
to, because that movie fucking rips.
Listen, we've already burned 2 podcast episodes worth of discussion on Robin Hood. Between as much as we talked about it on Robin Hood and as much as we talked about it on Princess Mononoke, like, we're good. We get it.
Listen.
We're good on Robin Hood.
Mononoke, beautiful film. Cool as Robin Hood? No. Like the movie, yes. The main character,
I just really don't want to litigate this again.
We're going to.
We're going to, apparently. Maybe we need to add that as a whole other segment after the Nicolas Cage thing. We'll just be like, how much Riz is in this movie?
A ton.
And it's on a scale of 1 to Robin Hood. Yeah. How much Riz?
Or who has the most Riz? Both.
Well, we'll do it all.
That's what it'll be the Ashitaka scale, right? From Ashitaka to Robin Hood, where does this fall on the Riz meter?
Except for we have inherent disagreements about Ashitaka's Riz. So much Riz.
Correct. So it's a sliding scale like everything else. So we're gonna have to figure all that out, which I'm willing to do. But let's do that at the end of the episode, where we just decided I'm deep teasing a brand new segment
that you literally just invented on the spot.
We're getting real loosey-goosey on this podcast.
Going way off book. It's fine. We have a whole break between seasons to figure out if we actually like it coming up. So, but for now, let's talk about the Warriors.
Warriors, come out to play.
1979, directed by Walter Hill, based on a book by Saul Urich, which in turn was based on an ancient classical Greek tale about a group of warriors stranded way behind enemy lines, having to make their way back home. So first question, as I think is partially tradition at this point, what's your relationship to this movie? I'll ask you first, Cal, because I just based on the dude heavy season remarks, I feel like I know your answer, Alex.
So this movie came into my consciousness in a truly unique way that I don't think many movies do, which is I remember when this game came out for PlayStation 2, right? There is a Rockstar adaptation of this movie that was a game for the PS2, and I remember when that game came out, it was an incredible brawler that blew my mind. I'm like, oh wait, this is a movie?
It was a brawler?
Oh yeah. Well, of course it is.
But a side scroller? What kind of game was
it was a 3D one, but those kind of Ninja Turtle games where you move to the right and punch people. Just imagine that in the 3D space. And in the Warriors,
just move to the right and punch people.
It's a pitch perfect adaptation. It's so well written, and for the time, all the action, it's a great game. I highly recommend it. And when I learned that was based on a movie, I of course went and watched. I went to Blockbuster and rented the movie and was floored. This is also a DVD I used to own. So one of the
bonus points there.
Yeah. So like I am all about this movie, and as a matter of fact, I like literally listen to the soundtrack as I'm just like driving to work this morning. I'm just like, yeah, like come on, let's go.
For me, this was a cable movie that I saw bits and pieces of. And then when I finally sat down to watch it start to finish, it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, that's what this is from. Like it was one of those movies that was just always kind of floating on the periphery. And then like I had seen bits of it and I didn't even know what I was watching. And then when I sat down to watch The Warriors finally start to finish, I don't know, high school, something like that. But it was like, oh, okay, I get it now. But I was older. I wasn't a kid, certainly, when I saw it the first time. So, but Alex, how about you?
This is a new one for old girl. And I wanted to like it more than there are like parts of it that I really, really enjoy. I love the gangs. I love their gimmicks. I love how campy that is. The costumes.
Yeah.
It's super stylish. But as a whole, it didn't do a lot for me. You know how people say about Avatar, the big criticism is you can't name any of the characters? Which, by the way, you can name Jake Sully. But
that's the only character because they keep on saying his name. Some people say that when it comes to Avatar and like not being able to name any of the characters, I totally agree with that. I actually think that that's like one of the more unintentionally genius magic tricks of that film. Because
Avatar?
Because both the original Avatar and Way of Water, which I think I like Way of Water more than I like the original Avatar. I remember being utterly fucking captivated walking out of that theater and then thinking to myself, like, I just spent the last 3 hours watching this movie. I can't name any character other than Jake Sully, and yet I was in.
Somehow I was in the hold for all 6 of those hours.
Listen, this is the James Cameron defense crew, and I'm happy to be at the front of it. But that's kind of how I feel about Warriors. Like, I know these characters' names because I studied them because we're talking about it for this episode. But I think if I were just watching it for funsies, I would have turned off the movie and not remembered any of the characters, really.
You did more than I did. I was sitting there half the movie I was watching trying to remember which one was Dexter's dad. Was who I was like, it's that guy, right? And it was like, nope, that's Swan. His name is Ajax according to IMDb. So I had to go back and I'm not sure if they actually said Ajax out loud. That's just what he's billed as.
They did. I think
did they? Okay. Oh yeah, because he gets busted and all of that stuff. But
the only guy's name I always remembered was Rembrandt.
Oh yes, he's the incompetent one. Well, there are a lot of them.
He's the kid that has the spray paint. Yeah.
To be fair, we'll talk about this. A lot of these gangs are pretty incompetent. Like, you kind of have to suspend your disbelief a little bit. The baseball fury should have won that fight.
You have to suspend your disbelief a lot, all right? The fact that the fucking baseball furies exist as a gang, like, just think about that.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
It's like proto-ICP, right? Like, you just kind of like, these guys exist in a city where they're clearly a Bronx gang because they have the Yankee pinstripes and they paint their face and then go out in public and somehow menace society.
Yeah. I think they just want to put on some nice makeup though, because they did not fight like they should have. Like, their whole thing is baseball bats, and you can't beat up a like 4 dudes who you outnumber with baseball bats.
These are the Warriors.
I think the bigger point of that is to show how good the Warriors are.
Yeah.
As opposed to how inept the other guys are. But like, they did it in a way, which, by the way, like, I love me some like clunky 70s fight choreography. I adore it. It's one of the weirdest, like, this is objectively not terribly skillful. Like, these guys aren't great at what they're doing. And then they cut to slow-mo going through a door or a pane of glass or something at least 2 or 3 times in a fight. I was like, I love that. It's just so great. But to the point earlier about like this movie just being, this movie is all vibes. It's all feel. It's all like the fact that it's grainy. The film is grainy and everybody on screen is sweaty and like that's a kind of filmmaking that doesn't really exist much anymore. Like that ends up on screen. It does rarely, but mostly it's movies that are really kind of lifting from movies like The Warriors, But like that late 70s vibe of like the film stock can't quite keep up with night photography unless there are big lights lighting up the whole suite, the whole street. And everybody on there has clearly been awake for 36 hours and they're sweaty and they don't look good. And hair and makeup budget got cut.
I don't know what you're talking about.
They're manly and they're sweating.
But I love it. I love that energy. That's why with like the late 70s is one of my favorite eras of filmmaking to go back to. But
You remember how in The Third Man we talked about what's so great about this movie is that setting can't be recreated? Like they shot it in Vienna right after the war. So you got all of the rubble of the destruction of like the post-World War II, like European city, and that's where this takes place. And so much of the cinematography is based in the fact that, you know, the Allies bombed this city to hell. So
yeah, it wasn't production design. That's just what Vienna looked like at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this movie, I think, is almost that exact, like it has that exact same vibe, which is this is what New York looked like in 1979 or 78, whenever they shot this. And this is like the coolest New York has ever been, right? I don't know if you guys have ever watched The Deuce, which is a David Simon HBO show all about how like Times Square was transformed from like the porno district
when Disney took it over or whatever.
Like to tourist hub of New York. And like this takes place like right at the end, like right during that transition where New York was dangerous. I think the city was on the verge of going bankrupt. It was like seedy as and like all of these things are just totally cool as hell. And it takes that level of seediness in order to sell the suspension of disbelief that a gang like the Baseball Furies could possibly exist. And like, you know, the New York subway and the opening credits of this movie is probably one of my favorite opening credit scenes in any movie ever.
Well, let's get into brilliant moments. All right, we can just go ahead and start there. I mean, the one thing that I do want to touch on before we get too deep into this is like we haven't mentioned Walter Hill yet. I mean, I did just briefly up top that he did direct it, but Walter Hill, I feel like one of the things that struck me is I feel like we run into a lot of things on this show about like, look at the run this guy had. Like, look at the 10-year run that this director is, you know, he did this movie.
Not
Walter Hill
Walt.
He's kind of the opposite of that. Like he's got some great stuff on his resume, but it's very spotty. He's not a streaky guy. What's funny about him, I think, is that like his biggest, honestly, his biggest paycheck continues to be that he was an uncredited script doctor on Alien. Like he's a producer on the original Alien and still on Romulus coming out, he's still listed as a producer on Alien because that's the work that I'm sure he was a script doctor, but he's like, just tack on a producer's credit, whatever. And then Alien blew up and he's still a producer.
I don't even think The Warriors is probably his most successful film. It is my favorite of his by far, right? But I think like in the time it was released, 48 Hours is by far this dude's biggest hit. That was like Eddie Murphy, Nick Nolte, like one of like the proto buddy cop movies.
Yeah, it was right in that prime era of like Lethal Weapon was, I think, on its way.
No, Lethal Weapon would have been a couple more years, right?
A couple
Lethal
years
Weapon
later.
was
That's what I'm saying. Like it was this predates Lethal Weapon, and that like when the buddy cop genre became its own thing and was really like a comedy vehicle kind of action movies. But
so like I think that's his best movie, right? Or his most successful movie. I think The Warriors is his best movie. It's just my personal favorite. But I also have a soft spot for Brewster's Millions, which I think is a hilarious movie that if I was to pitch a remake right now, that would be the movie I think needs to be remade is Brewster's Millions. Having said that, this guy is like a top tier mid director.
Right.
And
upper middle class director.
Yeah.
Fair.
For sure.
Because he's still working. He's had a great career in that terms. Like he made a movie like 2 years ago, something like that. So
A spotty career is still a career if you can keep it going in Hollywood.
No, that's I think that's the trick about doing a movie about 100 or doing a show about 100 of the greatest movies of all time is that you're like picking from some of the cream of the crop or whatever. But like that's the exception, not the rule. Like I think Walter Hill is more of like, you know, we've talked about movies that are like, if this were the baseline of acceptable for movies, like if all movies were at least this good, we'd be in good shape. That doesn't mean it's great. I think it was The Burbs, right? It was like, that's Walter Hill to me. Like Walter Hill is 1,000,000% capable and can put together a movie that's at least fun and he's got a long career to show for it. So
The other movie I want to shout out about Walter Hill, he also did The Driver, which is a great movie.
it's your guy Bruce Dern.
Yeah, it is my guy, Bruce Dern. Also, another movie I hope we do on this podcast. I don't know where it is on your all lists, but like this is a loose adaptation of a Jean-Pierre, like The Driver is a loose adaptation of a Jean-Pierre Melville movie called Les Samurai, which I'm also a huge fan of. And I don't know. I think that this movie is a very, like The Driver is a very cool, like very awesome crime movie, kind of like how Mean Streets was like early Scorsese and then he started to get budgets. I think that like The Driver is very much Walter Hill's Mean Streets, and then he like really does his Taxi Driver with the Warriors.
We'll see if the bro down continues in season 3 and we get Les Samurai.
The bro down.
That's another really I love it too, but it's very much a poster on the freshman dorm wall kind of movie.
That's the
We
thing.
probably need to get to. You probably need to get to your
Les
junior
Samurai
year before
is a college.
you need to get to at least your junior year before you get into Les Samurai.
I went to art school. I'm sure I saw a Les Samurai poster in there.
No way. That is a deep cut movie because he's not even technically because Melville isn't even technically part of the French New Wave. He was doing his own thing like alongside.
Oh, that would be a good list though. College dorm poster movies.
Yeah.
That would be a great list.
It would just all be Boondock Saints. I don't want to do that.
Pulp Fiction.
That's
a big one.
I don't
Ghostbusters.
need that. The Taxi Driver one where he's
Fight Club.
holding both the guns with the mohawk.
To your point, what was your movie poster and what were your movie posters in college, Clint?
I got deep into Kubrick my senior year of high school. So I had Clockwork Orange and I had 2001.
I have a Pulp Fiction print that I've carried with me since college.
Yeah.
We had actually a CineFix shout out. We had Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in my freshman dorm.
There you go.
Yeah. And I think at one point, to be really cliche, I had a Fight Club one.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to at some point.
You have to.
I'm
It's a
sure
rite
I
of
did
passage.
too. I also had a cool print of an Octopussy poster. Big James
nice.
Bond weirdo.
I had three posters. I had Pulp Fiction.
Of course.
Still love Pulp Fiction. Clint, whenever that episode happens,
We should all bring our posters.
very excited to talk about it. I had a Chinatown poster, which was awesome.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
And then the third one I had was Sunset Boulevard. So those were my three college posters.
This one has a good poster actually. It's got like a nice comic book feel because like I know that Walter Hill wanted it to be like a comic book movie.
Pedigree wise, I think we can probably move on. Let's get into Brilliant Moments.
Theatrical opening credits.
Theatrical opening credits, because I think that the Blu-ray that came out in the aughts sometime, 2005, 2006, something like that, probably around the same time as the video game, it opens with VO about the ancient Greek text that it's based on, right? It like ties it into that. And then it also says, meanwhile in the future, or some nonsense like that. This Blu-ray version, I was like, I'm no big fan of director's cuts, but I never sort of discount like what they do. Like they're more or less the same movie, and there's one scene here or there that might make a difference. But the director's cut of this that ended up on that Blu-ray is trash.
Yeah, completely agree.
Hate it.
It's awful.
Because of the comic book thing?
It
is
totally
cheap,
cheapens-
shitty nonsense. Like
That's
it
hilarious.
sucks.
It's just
Because
like,
even but apparently it's what he wanted to do initially. Like he wanted to get Orson Welles to do the opening VO about the ancient Greek warriors or whatever, and then the thing about this being set in the near future or something was all like he wanted to make it feel like a fantasy setting, but they didn't give him the money to go get Orson Welles, and so that's why none of it happened or whatever. But then there's also sprinkled throughout this Blu-ray cut, there's like these awful, like they look like template transitions from like after, like not even After Effects. It's like an iMovie transition or something like that. That is, it just like all of a sudden they turn into comic book faces, and then
panels, and then it just transitions to the other
panels
panel.
away into another one, and it's
Fucking
so
gross.
bad.
It's so bad.
It's
That's
real gross.
That's too bad because like once I started thinking about it more as a comic book movie, like after I watched it, because I read all that about how he did that with the director's cut. I think I liked it more. 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm like,
no,
if you think about it as like a superhero movie almost, it
Yeah.
kind of makes more sense.
Totally. And I mean, I'm all about that, right? But I think that that's like a exercise of thought after the fact, as opposed to being like baked into the visual style. Like, I don't think I need to be fucking clubbed in the head with like
Exactly.
with like comic book panels. You just be like, Gage, just so you know, this is a comic book movie.
I did see
by
clips
the way,
of like
comic
the POW
books.
and
Oy.
Hey, yeah, you like comic
Yeah.
books? Because this is a comic book movie over here.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's so fucking bad.
not
And-
everything
But
can
you know,
be Scott Pilgrim.
yeah, well, like Scott Pilgrim makes sense, right? Because it's like, this is the type of story that we're telling, and this is the, you know, but like nothing about the Warriors needs any of that, you know, and it's wildly worse off because of it, I think.
It did not need to wear its inspirations on its sleeve.
You kind of get it. You kind of get that it's supposed to be like not that realistic.
I mean,
and-
listen, I suspended my disbelief and bought a world where there is a fucking gang of kids in Yankees pinstripes painting their faces menacing like the South Bronx with baseball bats. I'm in. Like, here, like, look at like this photo. Like, look at this gang, right? It's the kids wearing the ties and the purple vests, just like going down into the subway, you know, ready to fucking rumble. Who
Is
thought
that the electric eliminators or
I don't-
whatever?
I'm
No,
not
those
enti-
they had the satin jackets that had electric eliminators on the back.
I don't know.
They never
what-
got a name check outside of that.
No. I mean, I don't know what gang leader was like, dude, guys, we gotta rep. All right, we gotta be tough. Let's get some shiny purple vests.
You think they like do laundry together? Because you know those vests got to be dry cleaned.
Yeah.
They gotta
and,
be.
And you know what? I don't
They
want to know.
they're running a protection racket on the local dry cleaners, and that's how they get them for free. But that was the thing that I really walked away from watching this movie again. Sometimes like I almost want a documentary or it wouldn't be a mockumentary, but a documentary style feature on like the anthropology of this community, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to know why they look like this, where they got the names.
What about this mind
all of the
game?
inspirations that made them the mimes. Like I want to know about like their histories and all of that stuff. I was much more interested. What I did find though is I found an interview with her name is Bobby Mannix, the costume designer. She gave an interview. There wasn't a whole lot. It was an interview. It was an article from I don't know, some random website years ago. I'm sorry, I'm not able to cite it, but just talking about the origins of it and wanting it to feel like a fantasy kind of comic book stuff or comic book thing. Like she just went nuts. She's just like, let's just make this like there aren't any people that exist in the world that actually dress like this. But one of the big problems is like they all have to look different, right? So that we'll be able to tell them apart. They all have to look distinctly different so that like immediately you can tell them apart. The idea that the Gramercy Riffs, the Turnbull ACs, the Rogues, the Lizzies, the Baseball Furies, the Punks, the Orphans, the Electric Eliminators, the Saracens, the Jones Street Boys, the Moon Runners, the Van Cortlandt Rangers. Like there's so many badass Halloween costumes in this movie.
So many Halloween costumes.
And then like so many fun names. And none of those names are from the book, by the way. The book has some different ones, but the book is like considerably more grounded in terms of its approach. There might be one or two of them that made the jump. I can't remember. We did an episode of What's the Difference on this years ago that I clearly should have revisited before we hopped on to talk about. Just the fantastic nature of all of these gangs and their looks, and like it does all of the heavy lifting that he thought like those comic book panel transitions were needed for, and we don't need them.
It does so much world building in such a short amount of time, and it kind of reminds me of like a John Wick, where it's you have this whole network of assassins and they don't bother to explain it, and that's good. I don't like that they're explaining it now in the Continental.
And the best part about this movie is that there's absolutely no sequels that kind of like I don't need to be told the origin of the Baseball Furies or literally any gang in that opening credits.
I wouldn't say no to it because I want more of the Baseball Furies.
I'm absolutely saying no because I love the Baseball Furies as just a thing that lives rent free in my imagination.
Yep.
But like the opening credits of that fucking like just thumping electronic like song as like guys are fucking shoving quarters, like shoving subway tokens into the slot and just like going through. Those
The
are
fact
lame.
that those tough guys actually paid for their subway rides.
That's what I was just gonna say. Those are the lame guys, because the actual cool gangs are the ones that hop the turnstile.
No, but that's kind of what like occupied my brain when I was watching this movie is like, how do they all get their costumes together? Do you think the baseball furies like do each other's makeup? Like there's so much in my head that I'm thinking of that I don't want explained.
I do think that part of the legacy of this movie is the fact that none of it is explained, and that there's also, and I saw this written about it a bunch, and it's something that I very much agree with, is like this movie strikes a chord because of how non-judgmental it is, right? Like this movie is not about the menace that gangs pose to society, right? Like this is not a movie about like what's wrong with kids these days and they're joining gangs and that's such a bad thing. Like they should be doctors and lawyers and all this stuff. Like this is a movie just about like, this is how it is for these kids. There's no other opportunities for them. There's a scene later in the movie where Mercy, who by the way, Mercy is, I think the best character in this whole movie.
I see what's happening next door and down the block. Belly hanging down, 5 kids, cockroaches in the cupboard. I'll tell you what I want. I want something now.
Like the fact that is presented in a way that isn't, you know, more sort of trying to make some broad social statement, or it's not trying to raise awareness about the dire situation of the youths in New York. It's just like, no, this is just life. We're just going to plunk you down into this world, and we're just going to, I think I saw a quote from Walter Hill saying something about, he wanted to present it as like, it's more about a defensive alignment so that they can survive a bad situation. You know, that's what these gangs are for. They're not a violent, reactive thing. It's just like, it's just how they live. And that's all there is to it, which I think is one of the reasons why this movie has a legacy at all, I think. Also, there were apparently gang members in real life actually loved it. And there was a lot of violence that happened in the theaters.
Well, I don't...
Because different gangs would show up to see it. And
in their
they
colors.
would be like, hey, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
the actual release of this movie is really fun to... That's why I think I enjoyed reading about this movie more than I enjoyed watching it, because actually all the issues that they worked through in production and the actual release of it, and how those issues about like the gangs showing up to screenings and getting in fights because they're gangs, it almost completely tanked this movie.
Yeah.
It was so gang friendly that no, but like that's very true, because I don't even think Swan, who is not I don't think he's a super interesting character, but I don't even think he's a bad dude. Like Ajax is. No.
Ajax is an asshole.
Yeah, Ajax is the bad
Luther
guy.
Is...
Yeah. There. I mean, it's, you know, like everything in life, any segment of society, like it's a broad enough view, the entirety of humanity, there's a certain percentage of assholes. Like, and it's true about whichever group you're looking at, you know, like
Movie rips. Put it out there. Like, let's go. This movie rules.
Well, let's talk about one of the things I want to talk about.
What cool scene do you want to talk
Cyrus's
about?
opening
We have
speech.
to talk about Cyrus.
We got to talk about Cyrus's speech.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
So that guy, that actor, Roger Hill, did such an incredible job with this monologue. And this is like even the staging of it, having him sort of slowly ascend to this makeshift kind of dais in the middle of the park, speaking to an amphitheater of just like thousands of people that have come to see him speak. It's so like pitch perfect Shakespeare, classic Greek tragedy kind of energy.
Do you guys also know the whole story behind Roger Hill and that character too, that casting? I don't think I'm blowing a torf here. But they had actually cast a real gang member to play Cyrus, and day of, they couldn't find him. They couldn't find him anywhere. So Roger Hill was brought on like that day and knocked it out of the park,
incredible.
which I think makes it even more impressive. I love him in this.
That makes a lot of sense too, because like the performance is so old, good old fashioned play into the back row theater stuff, right? Like I imagine they plucked him off like from Broadway or off Broadway or something like that, and be like, hey, come out here and shout at this crowd of people, and then get shot. And he's like, cool, got it.
The John F. Kennedy of gang members here.
Kind of, yeah, like young, promising, charismatic, yeah, assassinated.
And for a movie. Yeah, and young, charismatic, assassinated.
And
but for a movie that is, you know, one of my favorite parts about it is how sort of sweaty and grainy and sort of youthful the movie is. Like to open with this powerhouse of a Shakespeare. I mean, this is, you know, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears kind of shit. And to start out with that sort of speech that then gets undercut. Like I also think there's a bit of forever relevance going on here with when Luther shoots him. Like as hard as it was for Cyrus to pull this off and as charismatic. I mean, here's your the Riz meter.
Oh,
Dude,
so much
so
off the
through
charts. Off
through
the
the roof with Cyrus. But for as hard a work as, you know, this must have been to gather every gang in the city, it just takes one asshole to ruin it for everybody.
You know what else is really good about this scene, like up until this moment too, right? Because it's just like all opening credits and things like that. Like a lot of talk about like what pure cinema is, you know, like that concept. This movie, Walter Hill, I think, like, again, we can all agree he's kind of a mid director, but the camera work in this film up until like this point is so incredible. This could be a silent movie up until this point, and you would know everything that is going on because everything is just so immaculately visually portrayed to the audience that it required no dialogue. It's just it's just perfect storytelling. Like all these storyboards just kind of like line up, and you just like every gang in New York City is headed to this park in the Bronx to listen to this guy talk.
There's movement in every single one of those camera moves too. Like even if it's just a camera on sticks, like it's following the guys from getting the quarters to putting them in. You know?
Use
like
of perspective,
activity, even in how the titles are dumped on screen. Like they're moving along with the subway. Like everything's moving.
Not only that, like even the way that he uses different lenses within the shot, like as he's talking to Cyrus, right? Like Cyrus is shot with a long lens, and when he makes a point, then it cuts back to the crowds in a more like, you know, 50 millimeter medium lens. So they're kind of like, there's like some blur around them, but then during other points, they'll use super wide lenses so you can show how everybody's around. And just like the way that they're balancing all of this, it's so well done. It's so tightly edited, and all of the coverage and the variety of shots and lenses and stuff that they use just does such an incredible job of not only conveying visually the intimacy that every one of these gang members feels from Cyrus's speech, but also the magnitude of the gathering of all the gangs and how like large and like just impressive it is.
What do you know about Cyrus? Magic. Whole lot of magic. What do you know about Cyrus?
He's the one and only.
Really sells you on the Cyrus character too. Like because you get why he has all these people enraptured. And like before this, everyone's like, "Have you heard about Cyrus? You hear about Cyrus?
Yeah.
Here's magic." And then you get to the scene, and it's like, "Oh yeah, he's magic. He's got it." Like I was sold. I was like, "Yes, 60,000 soldiers. Let's go, baby." And then
I will also say too, like the way that they staged it to where it could have very easily been, we're looking at Cyrus and then we're also looking at the crowd. But there are several shots in that opening speech where we see Cyrus and we see the crowd behind him.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like it ties him to these people. And it actually says, like, very literally, he's got all of these people behind him, you know, like in the metaphorical sense and in the literal sense. Like he is like the impact of his speech and the effectiveness of it are like, that's this whole scene is just about that. And it's all where you put the camera and like just the shots from behind him where he's lowering his hands and everybody silences with it is incredible. Like just showing how he's got everybody behind him and everybody into his idea.
He's
so
like a
good.
cult leader, honestly. Like that's what it looks like. The way that everyone is like hanging on his every word.
Yeah, if he were saying some really disagreeable shit, then yeah, he would be a cult leader. But now he's a hero, you know, because he's like, no, we need to work together, and like we'll all be better off. Like,
a good cult.
He's bringing together cults, if you would.
Sure. Is a gang just a cult?
An omni cult.
Nobody is wasting nobody. That is a miracle.
I think we can all agree that, you know, Cyrus, peak Riz, There is an anti-Riz in this film too, which is David Patrick Kelly. And I don't know if we want to talk about David Patrick Kelly now, or we could talk about David Patrick Kelly to the end.
I love him. He's my favorite part of this movie.
There he is! That's him! That's the warrior! He shot Cyrus!
Man, you're crazy. I didn't do nothing.
We saw him! Yeah, that's him.
So this is
Yeah.
Luther. David Patrick
Luther,
Kelly
yeah.
plays Luther,
Yeah.
the guy that shoots Cyrus and then frames the warriors for it. So he's the antagonist of this movie. Like he's
And he's
the
very
one
like,
bad guy.
I just want to watch the world burn because we don't know
Yeah,
what
he's
proof
Joker.
he had. Yeah.
He's literally made an absolute career out of that. All right. Like, not only is he like magnetic in this, but the first movie I've ever seen him in where I witnessed the charisma of David Patrick Kelly is Commando, where he plays Sully, and he is the best goon in Commando. When he has the best death when he's just like, hey, Matrix, you remember when you promised you'd kill me last? I lied. And then he just drops him. And they just drop. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger just drops him off the cliff by his leg, and then pushes back over his Porsche and drives away in it. Oh my God, it's incredible. And like, not only is he awesome as like the swarmy gangster in Commando, he crushes it in this, and he's the weird brother in Twin Peaks, which is also just like, of course David Lynch would find this guy.
Yeah, he's also in The Crow. He's one of the
Yes.
the
That's how I knew
main
him.
henchmen in The Crow. Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, how I got so wrapped up in like reading about the making of this movie. So apparently this scene, it's a bunch of extras in the crowd, but also a lot of real gang members.
Yes.
And then also a lot of undercover cops to keep the gang members from fighting each other. Like, I just can't believe how they organized all that chaos when you watch it on screen. That's so much chaos.
You'd be amazed at how much you can get like regular people to get along when you say like, you want to be in a movie?
Yeah. But still, I mean, they couldn't go to the screenings without fighting. So.
Also apparently a lot of the cool wardrobe they just took off with it. Apparently, a lot of the actual gang members, that was another part of the interview that I read with Bobby Mannix, was like, the gang members that they were recruiting, like, he's like, we all had nicer stuff than any of the gang members wore, and they just took it home with them. They left us their shitty clothes, and they took home the brand new stuff that we were putting them in. So apparently there were gang members dressing up like mimes running around New York City for a short time after they made this movie. So
that delights me. That makes me extremely happy. Also, I read somewhere that it's unconfirmed, but apparently somewhere in the background, Samuel L. Jackson is in the crowd. That also seems like a rumor that Samuel L. Jackson would make up.
Yeah, there's no telling. The other thing is like so important about this scene is like, this is the reason for the rest of the movie, right? If Cyrus isn't 1,000,000% charismatic, and if we're not completely on board with him as this uniting force in New York City's gangs to then be like tragically killed, and then like the weight of the rest of the movie lives on this speech's shoulders, right? And it's wild to think that they cast a non-actor initially to do it. Which I'm like, oh, this guy feels like the only actor in the whole movie in some
like you said,
regards.
he's like doing Shakespeare up there. I mean, I've never heard
incredible.
Can You Dig It like from the chest like that, like fully over the top, full
all
actor,
the way to the
capital A actor.
Other brilliant moment, the Greek chorus, the DJ.
All right now, for all you boppers out there in the big city, all you street people with an ear for the action, I've been asked to relay a request from the Gramercy Riffs. It's a special for the Warriors. That's that real live bunch from Coney.
And the fact that John Wick Chapter 4 just lifted the DJ bit wholesale, like even the song Nowhere to Run To is in there. The DJ in John Wick even calls everybody boppers. Like, this is like,
it's like, what's the next level after homage?
Stealing, I think, is what it is.
Yeah.
I also just love the fact that these are legitimate needle drops. You actually see the needle drop on some of these when the song plays, and you just like, dude, as soon as they introduce her, where they're just like, we got a message for you, and then she just plays this, like, we got a message for you warriors out there, and just drops, like, just plays the sign. It's just like nowhere to run, and you see all the gangs like just getting in the subway, like, can go. This movie is all vibes, and it succeeds because it just is like peak vibe.
Well, here's my
Just
thing.
all
That's,
those like
yeah.
red light inserts of a DJ booth and
Just
like
all the needles ticking to the
just
right.
the sensual close up of a woman's mouth.
You never
talking
see her face.
It's
Yeah.
no.
And her mouth
It's
acting,
all-
by the way, she like enunciates like she means
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah.
That's style, man. And like it's so when it's done right like that, it's just this movie could have been so much worse. And I think we're gonna probably talk about later of just like how like, you know, mediocre, like cromulent the plot is and stuff like that. And I'm not gonna disagree there. There's something to be said about just being able to understand how to create and execute a vibe that is worthy of praise and admiration, even if other things that we may look to first in a movie to define quality, which is like the quality of storytelling and stuff like that. This movie is just hit like just 10 on vibes, right? Like anytime you're in that movie, you're just like, all right, can go. Like they're just like trying to get to the subway, and then it just like cuts to the woman. She's like, "Hey, you warriors, we got a message for you from like da-da-da," and it's just like, I'm gonna put a cool song right now that it's thematically appropriate, and then it's just like,
consider
it is
this
very
a threat.
thematically appropriate.
Yeah.
and it just cuts to a cool ass, you know, 70s fight scene where they're just like, you know, clearly missing the punches and
then like cut to a slow motion shot of him. I will say there's the this is probably, we just talked about fight. We've talked about fighting a couple of times. There is one fight, and this skips way ahead through the movie, but in the it's a fight between them and the Lizzies, and then also them in the, I think it's the punks, the guys in like the like the overalls and the striped kids shirts. That takes place in the men's room in the subway, and those are such peak 70s fight choreography. Like nobody's actually hitting each other. Everybody's throwing these wild like two-handed weird punches. Like it doesn't look like humans fight like that really.
Well,
in any
I also
way at
feel
all,
like you can
or
tell
with any
them
particular
going, like,
skill.
2, 4, 6, 8, like in their heads. You can tell them like doing
But
that.
then what's cool about the men's room fight though is like number one, they cut to a slow-mo. Anytime anybody gets thrown through a door or something like that, or a window shatters or whatever, they cut to slow-mo. They do that a couple times in a couple different fight scenes. What I like about this one though is that they have little bits of footage that's just a camera panning real fast that they just cut between two otherwise static shots. And it gives the whole scene like a ton of energy. And it makes me wonder like if they did that as a fix in post, or if they shot it that way on purpose the first time around, you know? Because like the fight scene could be pretty pedestrian without those shots, but it's just like these quick little disconnected from anything whoosh pans in the middle of this fight scene that give the scene a ton more energy.
Can I also talking about the bathroom fight scene?
Yes, you can.
Is this the coolest roller skater that ever existed?
I guess. I mean, look at how like he's dressed like a.
I mean,
he's dressed like a 5-year-old though.
He's dressed like a 5-year-old.
I mean that discounts a lot of bad guys from Rollerball. So I don't want to say yes, absolutely. But.
Also, Disney Channel original movie Brink, pretty cool roller skater.
But I mean, like, does Brink have any roller skaters with switchblades just like fucking ready to throw down in the men's room of a subway?
It's entirely possible.
I mean, he's like ready to, like, he's the leader. So like, not only does he roller skate, but he's like clearly charismatic, because every other fucking guy in that gang was like, I'm going to throw in my lot with this roller skater.
It's hard to lead on wheels, baby. I wonder if it's like a promotion. Like when you start to, like if he were to, after tonight, like maybe he didn't survive this fight. Like would one of the other, like that dude with the chain, would he be like, I guess I'll take the skates?
But like, I guess like what I'm trying to say is like, we have no backstory. So we all have to rely on personal experience, which I'm a big fan of. I love movies that do this. And when I was younger, actually, ironically, kind of around the time that I became aware of this movie, thanks to the video game, that was also around the time when wheelies or heelys were popular.
Oh God.
Which would have been the like 2005 version of that guy. And to think to myself, would I ever join a gang that was being led by a guy who wore Heelys?
Wait, were they in the video game? Because that could be a really interesting functionality in the game.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
But like thinking to myself, would I join a gang led by a guy who wore Heelys as like a key part of his identity? No.
And overalls and a striped shirt?
Yeah.
100% no.
100% no.
Like he looks like a Chucky doll. Like like people who actually dress like that.
It, though.
Oh no, he owns it
in a weird way. Yeah.
Yeah. No guys from Scranton.
Well, that's the thing about. Cool. Yeah, that's the thing about all of these guys is that they're just everybody like you're part of a gang and you own it and like there's the other scene that I do want to talk about that I think is in terms of acting performance is the leader of the orphans, which is like the first group that they run into, right? The leader of the orphans I think is a legit great performance in the middle of this movie.
How could this be a big meeting if the orphans wasn't there?
Listen, you didn't miss anything. There was a lot of hassle, a lot of heads got busted.
Yeah, you think the orphans ain't with it? You think the orphans ain't well known?
That's a scene where the Warriors also refuse. He's like, you got to take your colors off if you want to walk through our turf. And they're like, no, like, I'm not hiding who we are. Like, so everybody from the weird mime dudes to the baseball furies to the Child's Play doll gang, like they all own who they are. And like, that's part of the thing that makes them so tough and scary, I think, is they're just like, this is who we are, and we're going to kick your ass if you're staying on our turf. But the leader of the orphans and this scene is also great because it gives us Mercy, right? Mercy is the character. Deborah Van Valkenburg plays Mercy, and she is, I think, the most interesting character in this movie. Outside of Cyrus, but he's an inciting incident, right? But like Mercy is, I think, incredible.
Those vests are real nice.
Lighten up, Mercy. Stop looking for trouble now. Slap your mouth the minute you open it.
So who stopped you?
The leader of the orphans is he's desperate and he's like hurt that he wasn't invited to this party and he's defensive and he's like clearly doesn't like he knows the fact that they come trotting out with a newspaper clipping to like show how tough they are. Like the fact that he knows that they're kind of a second class gang, that they didn't merit an invitation and he gets it. But like he's projecting all of this stuff. Yeah, their gimmick is green shirts.
They have they have orphans printed on the back of them.
Yeah, they do. They got a little stencil spray paint.
They have no capital.
Right. But then but that's also the thing, like the fact that like Mercy can walk out of the house and just dress everybody down. And she knows what's going to happen. Like she's smart enough. She knows what she's doing. But like, the desperation that you see in the leader of the orphans, like he's like, oh, come on, please don't do this. Come on. Like if it weren't for his performance, like Mercy's character then sort of doesn't make as much sense to me or isn't as compelling, I think.
Also, Mercy has Riz.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, big
so much Riz.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm also going to say this about Riz. One guy wearing a vest without a shirt. Weird. 9 guys wearing vests without shirts. Cool.
Gang.
Now we're talking.
Yeah. It's like if you need to look cool, number one, the first thing you can do, you can just smoke a cigarette and you'll look cool. We've established that.
Oh, dude.
And then the other thing is you need to get 8 of your friends to wear a vest without a shirt.
Dude, 8 dudes, no shirts, all vests, all cigarettes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Coolest thing you'll
That's too much, honestly. It's got to be one or the other. That's like a hat on a hat.
You can't have one guy wearing a vest without a shirt, but the second you got 9,
yeah,
and they refuse to take off the vest. No, but
yeah,
they're just walking around half naked.
Yeah, then they just look like babies.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I love Mercy, and the reason I like her so much is, like you said, like she knows what she's doing, but also she doesn't. So like you have this scene where she has complete control over the entire situation.
Yeah.
But then right after that, when she's running away with the Warriors, she's totally in over her head. And you totally believe this character has both like survived in this gang scene while also being, again, I feel like every probably night she's in over her head and like hopping from gang to gang probably like.
Well, I think this is an upgrade for her. She sees a way out.
Yeah, that's she sees a way out and she takes it. She's smart.
Well, and you look at the way that women are treated through the rest of the movie. And like for her to have any amount of autonomy or agency, I guess would be the better way to put it, is like very telling. Like she's a badass. She's great.
And if we're talking about costumes, the fact that her costume is like overly feminine, like pink, you could see her nips and everything. Like it is such a stark contrast, and I have to believe it's
high
intentional.
heels and
high heels, running around in them.
skirt. Yeah.
What's also cool about this too is like her costume is iconic, right? And it feels like very like of the time and very cool, like just like slightly elevated from the orphans that she's literally hanging out with. But what comes later in the movie when the rich white kids get on the subway?
Yes.
And like that kind of class clash that happens is also one of the better scenes of this movie. And how they the pan up from her dirty feet in the heels, like up to them, and like watching these like white kids that just look like they got out of their fucking high school prom, just like size them up and be like, hey, I think we better go.
Yeah, it's right near the end, like right before they get off the train back in Coney Island. Like they have been through it. And yeah, they're sitting there exhausted, literally trying to survive the night. And then these prom kids with corsages and, you know, they just like come onto the subway laughing, not a care in the world. And like that to me is I think the one scene in this movie that actually it elevates the whole thing, right? Like there's if they can land at that point, you know, for as non-judgmental as this movie is about gangs, like this is the one scene that it turns it the other way. It's like, no, these rich kids don't get it. And the fact that they're just like strolling in, probably half in the bag on their way home from prom, just past all of these guys that have literally been fighting to stay alive all night long is such a great scene. It elevates the whole thing from being just like sort of that pulpy, sweaty 70s action stuff. To actually having a message, like an enduring kind of message. I do. And I also, the one little detail that I do honestly like is when she starts to fix her hair and Swan stops her. Like she starts to kind of dress herself up a little bit and then Swan stops her, which I think is such a great little subtle detail about like, don't live up to these people. These people suck.
Oh, that's kind of romantic too.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's also like, it was a sweet thing to do.
It's also like the subtle reminder I was probably those people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I spent damn it, we're in the fucking media, like, you know.
Yeah,
you know, and while
I've also drunkenly woken up at Coney Island many a times. There's been multiple times that my wife has made me know about my white male privilege because I was able to pass out drunk on the subway, wake up at Coney Island, and not fear for my life in any capacity. Yeah. And then just have to get back on the other side and go back
At
to
least it was
Parkslow.
pointed out to you.
Oh, consistently. Like there's multiple times where I came home at like 6 o'clock in the morning and she was like, "Where were you?" And I'm like, "I got drunk and passed out on the subway."
That's a dude thing, man. That's a dude thing.
I made it out to Coney Island, and she was like,
"Got you."
But while we're talking about Mercy and Swan, I feel like one thing that nobody ever talks about in this movie or about this movie is their kind of love story. I found it like, even though I'm saying, like I said at the beginning, and I kind of stand by it, that I don't really care about a lot of the characters, I was really endeared by their sweet little love story. Yeah. Like I don't think they last beyond a week after this movie, but they're kind of kindred spirits in a way. They're just like,
I don't know that anything changes for them. I guess they're going to do the same thing that they were doing, just they're going to do it together now is the only difference. Because I don't buy for a second that they're going to leave or go travel or anything. I don't think that's the vibe that we're meant to walk away from this with. But
they are both a means to an end. Like he is getting her out of whatever she was in.
If their lives are going to be marginally better because of each other now, like. That's probably the best they can hope for, I guess. But their conversation too is another bit. Their conversation about halfway through the movie, they're walking through on the subway tracks, like from one station to another, and they start to have a real conversation about stuff. And like this is where her point about wanting, I want to live now because I'm not, she says something about like, what's my future? I got 5 kids and cockroaches in the cupboard. And like, I just want to live now. Like I'm going to live and have fun now before I can't, you know?
I think that's like one of the better scenes. To your point, I also think that's like one of the arc, like the main arc of their relationship, right? Like that's when Swan realizes that she's just like not some 70s word like dumb bimbo from like Uptown, you know? Like she's smart and she knows what she's doing. And I think like that's the moment.
You know, his point too about like, he says something along the lines of like, everything that happens tonight is bad and you're just another thing that's happening tonight. Like, I get that too.
Come on.
You know, you're just part of everything that's happening tonight. And it's all bad.
Like, you know, she's the one that caused the first fight. You know, she's the, like, them and the orphans were just going to go their separate ways until she came out and stirred the pot. And like, they're both valid points, and I get where they're at. And it's actually a really capably written scene. I will say, just to throw a little shade at Swan's performance here, like, it's just, he is so thoroughly not as good as her.
100%.
In this moment.
Dude,
Can we talk about
he definitely
this?
got cast because he's looking good without a shirt on.
Yes.
Yeah.
He looks good in a vest with no shirt. Yeah.
He's just like
him and his 8 buddies.
How do they look with a vest and no shirt? And then the second question is, can they act?
I think that is one of my major issues with this entire movie is, so what you were saying about in the Princess Mononoke episode about Prince Ashitaka, he's my Ashitaka. I just don't, he doesn't have any layers to me. He's so uninteresting.
No, I totally agree with you. I'm not gonna.
But he does look good in a vest. Don't get me wrong.
Looks great in a vest. And he looks good. He's got that steely, clenched jaw, like, I'm just going to be a man and make the hard decision kind of energy that just doesn't play on any kind of layer other than that. Something, let's see, I wrote it down. Where did I write it down? I think it's 6 out of the first 10 people listed on the IMDb page. Their IMDb profile photo is from this movie.
Hell yeah.
Which is like,
hell
and that's
yeah.
not
That
to say
makes
that
sense.
it's their favorite thing they've ever worked on. It's me like, this is the biggest thing they've ever worked on, which is fine. Like, congratulations. You guys landed on a movie that we're still talking about 40 years later. I don't know that there's a ton, like David Patrick Kelly, obviously, James Remar, Ajax went on to have a big career. Mercedes Rule, who, like, she's the cop in Central Park that arrests Ajax. Like, she went on to have a huge career. She was nominated for an Academy Award a few years later for The Fisher King. Like, there's some like proper talent in this movie. Like, just about everybody else. Like, this is the only movie that's worth putting on their IMDb profile photos. So
Yeah, this movie rips.
Maybe we ought to talk about this later, huh?
Well, what's wrong with right now? I want to be warlord. Make you move.
should we talk about the ending?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Before we get away from brilliant moments, any other brilliant moments you want to talk about?
I mean, the end. I'm assuming you're going to talk about warriors in the ending.
Come
Yeah.
out and
Yeah.
So they get off the train. They're back in Coney Island. I figure as soon as we see the ocean, we're home. You know, like that sort of thing, which I think is a line straight from the original Greek text.
Yeah,
Oh,
but just
that's
not
nice.
with that like Brooklyn
Yeah.
accent though.
No, it was
Right.
the same accent.
Yeah, they had a Brooklyn accent in
in
Macedonia
Greece,
or whatever.
and-
So they get there, and here come it's the Rogues.
It
right?
is the Rogues, yeah.
That
Cool name.
Luther is the leader of. And so we have the iconic with the bottles, warriors. That is, of course, maybe the most iconic thing from this movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Improvised, by the way.
And just improvised, yeah. And it shows how weird and crazy this dude is. He's unhinged. Like, after everything that's gone on this night, and the Warriors have survived, and they're back home, and they're still, in a graffiti laden hearse, just being crazy people.
That's not a hearse. That's just what SUVs looked like in the late 60s.
Pretty sure. I thought it was a hearse. Looks like a hearse. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But David Patrick Kelly doing the bottles thing is so it's nails on a chalkboard, and it's perfect.
And it's so over the top. Like, that's what I like about... There are two kinds of villains that I really like. Don't get me wrong. I like the villains who are kind of sympathetic or have a motivation that you can... Like, the Killmongers of the world. I love those villains. But I also love the villains that have no goddamn motivation.
Well,
no,
he's Joker.
Crazy. The Joker effect.
He's Joker.
I
He's
still
just
love
an
that,
anarchist.
too. Like, there's no redemption, no justification. Just...
How did
Crazy.
he put it? It was, I just like doing stuff like this, man.
Yeah.
Like, something like that. Like,
can you do that impression one more time?
Maybe. Earlier in the movie when they were like, well, you look like you're having, like, what are you laughing about? He's like, 'cause I'm having a good time, man. Like, that kind of stuff is just, it's wonderful.
You killed Cal.
And
I love it.
It's the layers that this movie needs, right? This movie, like, we talk about the shorthand that this movie uses, and there's no explanation of it. So to have the villain be a guy that just wants to watch things burn, like, that makes total sense.
Also, I can't get over how smart the bottle thing was. I don't know if I would have thought of that. Like, do something menacing and your first instinct is to grab 3 bottles and do a little beat. That is genius. Anyway, we'll talk about it in my MVP section, but this is like he knocks it out of the park in this
Yeah,
scene.
I mean, I think he has like an AFI top like 100 quote of all time. Like I legitimately.
It probably is, yeah.
Yeah, hold on, let me look this up while we continue to.
Like, why would you think of bottles? That's so good. Ugh.
I think they were probably just on the floorboard of the car.
Yeah, genius.
I don't know that he got them from Crafty. I don't know that they could afford Crafty for this movie. I will say the other thing that I like about this ending is that there's not another big fight. Like, I appreciate that there's not another big, like, you know, as much as I love those 70s fight scenes, I'm plenty on record with that at this point. But I'm glad that there's not like some weird half choreographed knockdown drag out here. Like, I like that it's just like justice happens, you know, like the Gramercy Riffs show up just in time to hear Luther admit to it, and then they go and they get their man, and the warriors get the respect that they have earned by surviving all of the people trying to kill them all night long. So it's as happy an ending as you can hope for. I think.
Also, the riffs are so fucking cool. Like the way they just like walk up, like a bunch of Casey Joneses from the Ninja Turtles. Like, they just have every possible piece of sporting equipment that can also be used as a weapon.
Some hockey sticks. Like, I think there's a field hockey thing or two mixed in there. Like, it's pretty
great.
Dude,
they're gonna up these rogues so badly.
Oh, they're in trouble.
It's so good.
And I think don't they say at the end here that, like, you know, the warriors have Coney Island, but Gramercy Riffs have the rest. Like, I guess that's sort of Cyrus's legacy in a way, is that, you know, there's one group taking over, but the warriors are cool enough, they get their own little thing. So
that is cool. Like, he's letting them have Coney Island. That's not a small. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
that much
it is.
Of it. Is it small? I don't know.
I mean, it's not. Like, it's literally.
I'm
it's
a Midwesterner.
It's like literally the end of the city. Like, Coney Island. Yeah, Coney Island is fucking cool to go to like once a year.
Yeah,
but
it's not, something though.
Yeah. Oh, it's. Also, if you go to Coney Island, you're gonna see Warriors merch everywhere.
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 I liked the Lizzies. There's not much to talk about in that scene.
I just think it's cool.
I think it's cool.
Yeah,
like, that's where I was like, oh yeah.
There's a girl gang that posed a legitimate threat. I think that's fucking cool.
Well, it makes total sense. Like,
for 1979,
the whole false sense of security.
That's really cool.
Also, the Lizzies, great name for a girl gang. I don't know, like, just works for me.
Is there a band? Yeah. Was there a band named the Lizzies? That
there should be. It's a cool name.
Bit of trivia about the Lizzies that I learned in that article I read with the costume designer is that all of their tops were see-through, but on the day they showed up and they all left their jackets on, and that's just how they.
Well, I don't think they expected it to be as rainy as it was. Like, I remember reading they had a bunch of issues with rain, so that would make sense.
All these 70s bathrooms just remind me of every church I've ever been in northeastern Pennsylvania. Like, because clearly none of the bathrooms in like NEPA were like updated since the 70s, but like having to pee in like those horse troughs at every church I've ever gone to is just like the most hilarious thing ever. And I think about that all the time.
I grew up in Houston, and that's it's all Astrodome memories for me. The peeing in the trough of the Astrodome.
Oh yeah. Just trough peeing, you know.
Trough peeing.
It's just something.
Nothing says 60s
welcome
and 70s
to the bro-
like
Welcome to the
peeing.
Broke podcast.
It's the broiest episode
I don't think that's an issue that you
like,
run into.
I don't know how many memories you have of those urinals that go to the floor.
Yeah.
You know, that just like they end on the floor, so you're basically just peeing on the floor.
I've still got one of those at the theater.
Oh, do you really?
I have a question. If you gun to your head, if you had to have like a prequel or spinoff about any of the gangs, which one would it be?
Prequel or spinoff?
Yeah, like any kind of
prequel, spinoff, or sequel.
Yeah, take your pick.
Prequel.
Dealer's choice.
I want a Cyrus prequel.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I want a Cyrus prequel, or I want a. I think you could do a sequel with Mercy and Swan in their new town. Like it has some of that energy of just like I tried to get out, but we just keep.
I don't know. Maybe that feels like a Billy Joel song.
Yeah, no,
like
it's
if a
true.
Billy Joel song was a movie, that sounds like this sequel.
You're right. If he gets a job down at the docks, it's a Springsteen song. But the
does feel like it could be
no,
very
but the Cyrus,
they'll be damned if they move to Jersey.
Building if there's a Cyrus movie that ends where the Warriors begins, like I'm here for it. I think that was you beat.
That's
me
the
to
correct
it.
answer, by the way. Cyrus was
right. Which is I tried to fish around for another option, but I don't think there is one. So
I want to know. Like I'm glad we don't know more about Cyrus, but I want to.
Now, for that group out there that had such a hard time getting home, sorry about that. I guess the only thing we can do is play you a song.
How about some Torf? We got any Torfs?
All right. True or false? According to an interview with a Hell's Angel member on the Howard Stern show, the Warriors vest logo was taken from a picture of a bike built in a California prison by an incarcerated Hell's Angel. As a result, the logo has been widely adopted by the East Coast members of the Hell's Angels.
Yeah, I want that to be true. That sounds cool.
Tayo's clever. He's not that clever.
I mean, he's getting better every week.
Am I wrong? Are we wrong here?
Craftier with his Torfs all the time.
Okay, because it's false, but I don't understand why.
That honestly, that's the nature of a good Torf, though.
Yeah. Okay, he clarified. Thank you.
I do like the Torfs that get live updates from the control booth.
Those are the best ones.
Yeah.
So it is false. So the origin of the logo is true. However, the fact that they have adopted it is false. It has apparently caused several fights, and Hell's Angels will violently defend ownership of any of their logos. So they're not into it, really.
Got it. Okay. So it did come from a prison motorcycle from California.
So if you build a motorcycle in prison, do you not get to ride it?
How do you? That feels like a different podcast.
If a bike is being built in prison, does it get to be?
Does it actually rev?
Yeah.
I guess that's all you can do with it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Torf. True or false? Thomas G. Waits was fired 8 weeks into principal photography for being difficult and arguing with Walter Hill. And if you don't remember who that is, what was
false?
Tom Waits?
If you didn't,
Tom Waits?
No, different.
No,
different guy.
Thomas G. Waits is a different guy.
I'm curious to know. Yeah, Tom Waits is not that distinct a name. Like it's.
And the character Fox.
This is going to be another one because I'm not sure exactly how the true or false is going to come down on this, but Walter Hill hated him. That part is true. The manner in which he got fired, I was going to tack this on as a Torf if it wasn't one of Tayo's. So true. He did get fired halfway through photography.
I'm going to go with Clint. He sounds confident.
That's and confident and rightly so. That is true. And I actually love this. I love it too. The reason why Fox has the most anticlimactic death being thrown onto the train is just because Walter Hill was like, no, kill him.
Walter Hill was like, get rid of him.
Yeah.
Like that's the funniest story in the whole thing. And then like the stunt guy had to sort of figure out how to kill him. He's like, I don't care how you do it, just kill him. Like, well, this is one of those things where, like, you know, as much credit as you want to give a director, and we've run into this a couple of times where, you know, I think it was with Friedkin on The Exorcist where we talked about like, oh yeah, he just fired guns indiscriminately on set. It's just like, this is another one where Walter Hill was just like, no, get rid of him. And he's like, I don't care how you do it, kill him off.
Throw him on the tracks.
Because originally, like, he was supposed to end up with Mercy at some point.
Oh yeah, but they had like no chemistry. Yeah.
I guess, but either way, like Walter Hill and the actor and Tom Waits, the not singer, was like they couldn't get along and they just hated each other. And so Walter Hill was like, kill him off. I don't care. And so they created this scenario in which the cop throws him in front of an oncoming train.
But it's so bad.
It's not
Apparently
him doing the stunt either. Like the stunt.
No, I don't think it is.
They got a crew member that sort of had the same build, and they threw him over.
No, it got so gnarly that Waits isn't even in the final credits of the movie. Because I guess, he demanded that his name be removed. Like,
there you go.
Gnarly. Yeah. It's funny too because I read he was so hard to work with because he thought he was the star. Nobody thought he was the star. Box.
Like there might have been a moment where Walter Hill, because apparently Walter Hill was like comparing him to James Dean or some nonsense like that. I don't know. Apparently Walter, like, it started well and then it ended like that. So.
Yep. All right. You were right though. That was true. All right. Last Torf. In the original script, there was a gang called the Dingoes, and in it were Kevin Bacon and John Snyder, who plays the gas station man.
True. Why not?
Yeah.
The Dingoes.
The Dingoes. I didn't know that there was enough Australians in the city at the time, but true.
It's true. They were supposed to be a homosexual gang with Doberman pinchers and blonde wigs who captured Swan temporarily, but this was cut from the script. I don't know if I'm bummed about that because, one, it would have been most likely homophobic.
A lot of that.
There's definitely a lot of that. It would not have been handled well.
If Ajax is any consideration, then it would have been a pretty gnarly scene.
But it might have been cool because, like, women are also treated very poorly in this movie, but the Lizzies are cool. Could have been cool. Oh, and live update from Tayo. Walter Hill regrets cutting the gay gang from the Dingoes from the Warriors. What I wanted to show was the gay gang.
What part of town do they live in, by the way?
The Dingoes?
Yeah.
I don't know if we got that far.
Just out of curiosity. Wait, where they live?
That's what we need, is a map of the 5 boroughs that's labeled by which gang from the Warriors occupied which part of town.
There's some great world
building. I'd hang that poster in my college dorm.
Yeah, I'd put that in my dorm.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I'd put that in my dorm.
But that's it for Torf.
All right. Who, indeed, is your MVP for the movie?
I got maybe a hot take.
Hot. Make it the hottest and lay it on us.
I don't know if it's super hot. I alluded to this earlier. David Patrick Kelly.
I have 2. David Patrick Kelly is definitely one of them. And then the other is Barry D. Vorzon, who is the composer of the theme. Yeah.
That's fair. We haven't really talked about the music too much.
Oh, dude, I listened to it all the way to work. It rips.
So Joe Walsh's In the City became an Eagles hit after this. I didn't realize that Joe Walsh wrote that song for this movie. Like, I thought it was his, because he wrote the song for this movie, and his version of it is way better than the Eagles version of it that got bigger, I think, later on. But like, I love that song, and I had no idea it was written specifically for the end of the Warriors.
That is fun.
Yeah.
It's a good way to end it. So wait, is that your MVP?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also think David Patrick Kelly, though, is like, he's just incredible.
Incredible.
I'm going to go completely, I'm giving it to Bobby Mannix, the costume designer.
Oh, that's a good one.
Listen,
that's really good.
Like, for everything that this movie does, and we've talked about whether or not it does it well for an hour and a half now, but like, I really think the thing that has the most staying power, the thing that's most iconic about this movie is the look of all these gangs. Like, you go out on Halloween and you recognize a baseball fury immediately. I think that's the real staying power and the real legacy of this movie is like the looks of all these gangs. So I'm giving it to Bobby Mannix. That's
a good pick. And like, you don't get the opportunity to give a costume designer MVP a lot of movies. And that's a really good pick.
I am not blowing it. This is my one shot to award. You know how much I want to award costume designers every week on this show. I'm like, I wish I could award the costume designer, and I finally get my chance.
This would be the one.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to cinematographer Andrew Laszlo, because I don't think we've brought him up, but
we did talk extensively about the cinematography.
Yeah, so shout out to Andrew as well. But.
We're just now saying his name. Okay, well, I clearly won that.
So
let's move on.
Sticking with I'm sticking with it out of principle.
Yeah, please do. Cal, we got time for one more segment.
Great. The usual segment, which we're going to talk about. We actually got time for 2 more segments. We're going to do the Riz meter here.
We got to make time for 2 more
Riz
segments.
meter.
Yeah. So, but first things first, who would Nicolas Cage play in this movie?
You know, my answer is to this.
What?
Literally any of the Warriors.
I was just gonna say I would
Might
say
pick a
Swan.
Swan.
Yeah, because
Swan, sure,
great. He could do
I think the
Cyrus,
movie's better
but I don't
with
think
him as any of the Warriors.
Yeah. Any of them,
except for the kid. He's probably I don't want him to be
except Rembrandt.
The kid,
sweet Rembrandt.
Rembrandt was honestly pretty good. I thought Rembrandt did his job right. The rest of them just interchangeable as all hell.
I think the obvious Mimi answer is Cyrus, but I don't like that answer.
Cyrus is iconic in this. We don't want to replace him.
And I'm not giving him
same
Luther.
with David. And same with
I
David.
wanna-
He's not Luther. No, because I think Nicolas Cage as Swan would maybe erase some of my issues with Swan. So I feel very good about that pick.
Yeah. Swan's great. Swan or Ajax. I mean,
Ajax
either
would
one
be
of those
good
guys.
too.
I think he could do. I like imagine knowing that David Patrick Kelly improvised Warriors come out and play. Like, had Nicolas Cage been in that role, what would that have been? That improvised moment would not have been come out and play. It would have been something far more Nicolas Cagey.
Yeah, still good, I'm sure, but not.
I guess it'd have been something crazy.
I also wonder, like, there's a different movie where Tom Waits and Walter Hill got along, and Fox was an actual character. So maybe that's where Nicolas Cage is playing.
Maybe
Fox.
Walter Hill and Nicolas Cage would have gotten along. All right. Now we have time for one more. Where does this movie fall on the Riz meter? Our completely just now made up and very loosely defined Riz meter on a scale of Ashitaka to Robin Hood. Where's the Warriors?
Again, I take issue with the scale. Gaga has as much Riz as Robin Hood.
When we get out of this broy season, we can revisit the scale. But for now, it's Ashitaka to Robin Hood.
I will say, not to relitigate Ashitaka's Riz, but our great colleague Alyssa Mora agrees with me that when he said "you are beautiful," Ashitaka had all.
It lands.
It lands. It hits. It hits for the ladies. Yeah. What can I say?
He's so vulnerable in that moment.
So vulnerable. It's interesting because there's Riz in spurts in this movie, and there are times where there's desperately. Sorry.
No, it's okay. That was me being very childish.
No, I set it up. But there's also times where there's like a desperate lack of Riz, like with the orphans.
An utter dearth of Riz.
Yeah, but the orphans aren't supposed to have Riz.
Yeah, sure.
No,
but
I think
they don't.
I think we said it up front. I think Cyrus by himself elevates this towards the Robin Hood end of the Riz spectrum.
Yeah.
Just based on that opening monologue alone. And then I think Mercy being so relatable for the entire movie.
She has Riz. She has a lot of Riz.
She has Riz,
yeah.
Right? The roller skater has Riz, right? The roller skater gang member has Riz. I get.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make
you have to. You just can't recruit a game on roller skates without Riz.
All the riffs really have Riz.
Oh, the riffs are nothing but it's. Just call them the Gramercy Riz.
Hey.
But like you have to have Riz to go outside as a baseball fury.
And the Lizzies. I mean, to just have a gang.
Oh, they have a ton of Riz.
Yeah, to have a gang in it.
Yeah.
To have a gang in the city.
The Rizzies.
This might be the Rizziest movie we've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, just the swagger with which everybody walks through this movie is just dripping in Riz. Okay, great. So on the higher end of the scale.
Honestly, maybe I think it goes past Robin Hood, thanks to Cyrus alone. Cyrus may be our bar.
Clearly, we all dig it.
Hey.
We do dig it.
We do dig it.
We can dig it, Cyrus. All right, so where does this movie rank? Alex,
it's not on mine.
You very much did not have it on your list.
No.
I'm told that Dan also not on his list.
I'm actually not surprised.
It snuck onto mine by the narrowest of margins. I had it at number 99.
Whoa.
Oh.
Like this was and the last couple picks of this, I will say, in like my strategy for building my personal 100 is like the last couple were kick-ins, honestly. I'm like, what's a fun movie? And then I would, So, I mean, could have easily been 103, but it was 99.
I'm 81. This is 81 for me.
Wow.
81.
The way you talked about it, I thought it'd be like top 50.
I mean, it's got a lot of riz.
Hang on.
Which does a lot for it. Like, make no mistake. I love
Big
this.
fans of Riz here on CineFix.
No, I like it. Gets on the top 100.
Starting
but it's not
with this episode.
It's not in the top. It's not in the top 50. And because
you can appreciate this movie for all the vibes that it has, but like the proper filmmaking stuff. It's not very It's not a very literary movie. It doesn't make me sit there and contemplate the meaning of life or any deep, profound truths of the human condition.
No.
But it's fucking cool as fuck. And frankly, that's enough.
It's got 9 guys in vests with no shirt.
Dude,
like what?
Again, we've established 1 guy with no shirt and a vest. Lame.
Weirdo.
9 guys with shirts and a vest.
Very
Science.
cool.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
I've always said this.
All right. Well, you guys are bound to have an envelope there in front of you. Where does this one?
I have to guess because I've been crushing it the past few episodes.
Where is it? Where is it on the list here?
So we've got two lists. 99. What was it, Cal? On
81.
Yours? I'm gonna say 90.
It's not on the list at all.
Wait.
No,
what?
I don't understand how this algorithm works.
Is this one not 100?
No, it's definitely not. It's on 2 of our lists. That gives it a boost.
But it's
it
low.
gives it a boost, but how much? I don't know. You said 90. I mean, listen, I can't go much lower than 90 without being.
Maybe
I'll
it's
go
99.
with mine. My 99.
I'm gonna go. I think it's gonna probably hover around right where I'm at, which is 81.
Oh.
No way, it's that high. It's
Price
gonna be
is
lower
right.
than that.
Price. I see. I think like all the last 10s are all single list entries.
Right.
But
it's too low. I know it's on 2 lists, but it's not high enough on either one of them. I don't get it.
Right.
Go ahead.
So you think it's not on the list?
I mean, it is.
I think we've been dealing with a not top 100.
I would be so mad.
Clint, you son of a bitch.
Did you get it
what
right?
What did I do? 208.
Wait, this whole time we've been sitting here with a not 100?
Yeah, we hadn't even known it.
What are we even doing with our lives?
So this is the not 100. We're just finding this out now,
which
is why we can't even veto it.
I had a whole strike. We were gonna have.
Is the other envelope even there?
No, it's not. We should have known that from the get-go.
We should. The clues were there, right in front of us.
Wait, this is illegal. What?
There are bound to be rules against it.
I'm calling the police.
I was so proud that this was going to be on the list, and now that it's not.
Wait, that's crazy. Is he allowed to do that?
I'm gonna write him a letter. Put it in that envelope for him to fucking open
not
at the end.
I'm gonna find 9 other guys. I'm gonna find 8 other guys, and then we're gonna take off our shirts and go to Dan's apartment and invest.
We're gonna take off our shirts. We're all gonna be smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
I bet we could round up like 7 other guys in the office.
You just need 8 more dudes.
They can borrow my vest. That's the reason I brought it.
Finding 8 more bros that like the Warriors enough to threaten Dan is not going to be a problem.
Honestly, just finding 8 bros that want to threaten Dan. Period.
These aren't Murray Hill bros. These are dudes. Right?
These are dudes. Okay.
They're dudes.
Okay.
They're a cooler class of guy, right? You got bros, which universally disdained, and you have dudes, which have a modicum
which
of
are
respect.
universally revered.
I like dudes.
Yeah, people like dudes. No one likes bros, though.
No.
And bros are just slightly above chads.
That's our next scale, our next segment. Who's the Chad, who's the bro, and who's the dude?
Chad just narrowly above Chaz. So.
Chaz?
Chaz is below Chad. Look, we can offline about this. Listen, we're clearly reeling. Clearly reeling at the reveal of this not top 100.
But I want to just make sure, even though it is not top 100, we're not referring to, we have the respect for these warriors, and we're not referring to them as bros. They are dudes.
Oh, that was
correct.
The point. Yeah.
I was not referring to the warriors as bros. I was referring to the class of dude that you would be able to recruit to take their shirts off and threaten Dan.
I mean, it depends on.
I think there's gonna be at least a bro or 2 mixed into that group.
Yeah, it depends on what side.
Peppered
of the
with bros. Listen,
for every 3 dudes, there's at least 1 bro.
You gonna go talk to the sales team, or are you talking to?
I was just gonna say it depends on what side of the office I go
social
recruit
in
from.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I'm glad you're there to figure all that out. Listen, the good news is we got a great data point about how this algorithm works. If it's only on 2 lists, but it's ranked low, it's a not top 100.
Is there no explanation for this?
None whatsoever. And I am ready to join a gang and be mad about it for the rest of my life because of this. But
so we only need 6 more dudes.
Yeah, no, I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm in. So, well, 7 more because you need 9. And then we'll have to find the vests. We need 7 more dudes and 8 more vests because Alex is going to lend us hers.
Yeah.
But listen, that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you for talking about the Warriors with me and Riz and vests and bros and dudes. But also thank you to all the boppers out there listening as well as our representative from the Baseball Furies, producer Tayo Oyekan, the Gramercy Riff that decided not to kill us, technical producer Marhyan Franzen, orphan Jamie Parslow also helped out. But you know who did jack shit once again?
Dan.
Damn.
No thanks, Dan.
Less than jack shit. I'm actually.
So let's.
You know what?
No. He actually caused harm.
Yeah.
Dan is just the cop that ruins all the good times in everyone.
Exactly. He's that first cop that flipped on the lights there during Cyrus's speech. So let's
Fucking
just
pig.
skip to the part where I say, join us next week when we'll be watching the only reasonable follow-up to the Warriors, Jaws. So at least we're staying in the 70s. That's the connection. So in the meantime, we'll see you next for the last couple episodes of our community season. In the meantime, stay safe, be good, and we'll see you next time.